This morning's with Brian, live from the North Coast Family Foundation sponsored studios. Good morning from Moody Radio Cleveland. And you guys, we got a brand new friend in studio. He is president and CEO of Christian Children's Home of Ohio. Kevin Hewitt, welcome to the show.
Brian, thank you so much. What a pleasure it is to be here, and honored to be here.
And I've just discovered you and I have a profinity for the better of the sciences.
Yes.
There's the people doing like biology and physics, all that boring, dumb stuff. We're in the social sciences.
Yeah, that was by far more difficult than the other ones.
And interesting. Not difficult. and it's a silly thing. I used to teach social studies, but yeah, so some of your undergraduate training was in that.
Yes.
Wasn't it so fun?
It was fun.
I really enjoyed it. These guys were falling asleep in history class. I was taking more.
There we go.
Did you fall asleep in history?
No, I liked history. It was better than math, so.
Oh.
Nothing truer has ever been said on this show.
Wow.
And I primarily went into social sciences to avoid math.
See, I actually liked math too, so I want a cool dinger like that.
Here, you want to borrow mine?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. It's nice to have a bell to make yourself correct. Whenever you hear a bell, I'm usually
we got double bells
saying that I'm right. Okay, but that's not why you're here. You want to talk a bit about your work of the Christian Children's Home of Ohio. Give us kind of the overview of what you all do.
Oh, man. So we have three main programs. So our Children's Residential Center is located about 5 miles north of Worcester, where we have 5 cottages, and we provide treatment for kids that have experienced trauma severe enough they can't be in a home. So I know as a teacher, you probably saw some of those kids that we work with and some of their stories. I mean, all their stories just break your heart because of what's occurred to them. And then we have two other main ministries, and that's in Encompass Christian Counseling. We have 10 offices located throughout Northeast, and we just opened up in Circleville. And then we have Encourage Foster Care, which is about 80 foster homes located throughout Northeast Ohio.
And it's always overwhelming for me to hear about foster care because of how many kids need help. I mean, how many kids are rotating into the system right now or like in it?
Well, the last, and again, stats are usually, a little bit behind by the time we get them. So in 23, I believe there's like 23,000 kids in the custody of county agencies. Now, they might be in foster care in the state of Ohio.
Oh,
so
23,000.
23,000.
Somebody was hoping you were going to say in America.
No. I think in America it's over 400,000. So that may be low. That might even be low.
It truly is breathtaking to even think about that level of situation. So you're helping kids primarily that are so traumatized that they probably won't be placed in a home yet.
Well, that's our residential center. Yeah. In foster care, they experience some trauma. Because imagine, you growing up and being told that you're going to go live with somebody else. I mean, that's trauma right there. No matter how difficult of a situation you're being in, that's still, you're moving. So it's a challenge. And that's what makes, like, our foster parents are literally modern-day heroes.
Oh, so, yeah. Well, and, we live in an era, we talk about all the time how important mental health care is. Yeah. And those of us with intact families are trying to work out our trauma from our childhoods.
Correct.
So, wow, okay. I'd imagine you're in desperate need of foster families.
Yeah, we are. There is actually, I think, just in thinking about numbers, 23,000 kids in the custody of Children's Services and 7,300 foster families in the state of Ohio. So you can imagine that numbers don't add up.
Which is why sometimes I imagine you hear the terrible stories of people in it for the check that comes, and why we need more and more believers to be a part of this.
Yeah, I think that's like the main difference between our foster parents and other foster parents is look at the kids with an eternal value, an eternal worth, not just a temporal. And some of the horrible stories we've heard is there were foster parents that would name their next foster child by what they were going to buy with the money they have. So
Get out of
like
here.
minivan or addition to the house. And we don't have that happen. We have foster families that love Christ and want to, they are literally missionaries in their own home.
Yeah, and it's shocking to hear that, but I know it's true. I remember when I lived in the south side of Chicago, there was a young man who would beg at an intersection, probably in his teens. And I was talking to somebody once, one of my neighbors, and they said, "Oh yeah, you know where he lives? It's his foster house. They kick the kids out during the day to go make money."
Man.
And again, these are the horror stories of how the system works when there aren't enough people in there who love the Lord or are just good human beings.
Yeah.
So,
And the problem with that too, Brian, and I don't mean to interrupt you.
no,
but
please go.
Is those are the stories that hit the press.
Right.
Is the foster kids that do that, or the foster child that goes down and robs the gas station or whatever. You don't hear of the foster parents that are literally. Actually, we had a Monday Motivation written by one of our foster families, and she described they've had 7 placements and 5 kids. 5 of them have been baptized. I mean, those are the stories that, and not only this, and this was going to hit you, is not only were the kids baptized, but they made a relationship with the birth mom. And the birth mom at one time started coming to church with the foster families. And the church, she looks over and goes, "I want to go forward." And the foster mom, Cheryl, said, "What?" And she goes, "No, I want to go get baptized, like right now." And so she went up. So birth mom, foster child, they still have a great relationship. I mean, I get goosebumps talking about that because that's the way it's supposed to work. I mean, that's a cool thing.
And I'm guessing the recipe is probably simple. It's just loving the kids well who haven't been loved well.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard. It's a lot because reality is all of us, that hits all of our hearts. But how many of us actually step up and do it? I mean, that's why I love sports. I mean, we can talk sports all day, but when I think of true heroes, it's our foster families, our adoptive parents, our treatment specialists in residential. I mean, they are literally taking on like the pain, the emotions, our Encompass Christian counselors that are walking alongside people that are just hurting and are desperate for the understanding and the peace and the hope that's found in Christ.
Yeah, and talking about these kind of things is so important because often when you don't know much about the system, right, people will blame the administrators of the foster care system when the reality is what you told us before, right? There's 23,000 kids and 7,000 families?
Yeah.
And so when you don't have enough families, you can't be as selective. Yeah. And we don't want to put kids in orphanages in America.
Correct.
So if they had more people willing to foster than children, they could be more selective.
Yep.
Which is where you hear about communities around the country where churches make it their mission to.
Oh.
I think there was one in Texas where they made the mission.
Possum trot.
You've heard about this?
Yeah.
Can you give us the basics of that story?
It's Sound of Hope. I think it was called Sound of Hope because Sound of Freedom was the human trafficking one. So it was Sound of Hope. It was actually a church that saw the need in the community and said, we're getting rid of the need for foster parents. And
in their county.
Right? And they did it. I mean, it's a crazy good story.
Now, it's not an easy journey.
Oh, no.
It can be one of the harder journeys you take.
Yeah.
But that's the power of what one church could do in one county.
Yep.
Can you imagine? All right, it's 8:44. We're up against a quick break. With us in studio, Kevin Hewitt, President and CEO of the Christian Children's Home of Ohio. We'll continue chatting with him about perhaps opportunities you can plug in or pray about how you can support this ministry doing a great work for God's kingdom in our state. Vertical Worship at 8:49 on WCRF, Mornings with Brian. In studio, Kevin Hewitt is with us. He's President and CEO of Christian Children's Home of Ohio. They do a number of things surrounding the foster care system, but you all have some new initiatives that I'm excited to chat with you about. One of them is Encompass Christian Counseling. What is this?
So Encompass Christian Counseling is our faith-based counselors in our 10 locations go and pretty much provide therapy. I mean, we're, of course, known for working with people who have had trauma occur to them, whether it's abuse, divorce, family issues. We're really, really good at. We have licensed professional counselors that love Jesus, and they make an amazing impact in the world.
And they're trauma specialists, it sounds like, which is so key.
Yes.
People who aren't quite into the whole counseling world, there are specialties.
Yes.
And when you're dealing with kids who have been taken out of their homes due to whatever the situation might be, you need a trauma counselor.
Yeah, and not only do we work with kids, but we actually do birth to grave. So we have adults as well, too. So our therapists are highly qualified, highly trained, great people.
Now, you have a whole system now for recruiting people, right, to be foster parents?
Yeah. So our recruitment specialists, actually we have 2 now, Heather and Katie, they are fantastic. And Heather actually just won a national award from the Association of Christian Child Care Administrators for the Foster Care Worker of the
wow.
Year. She is passionate about foster care. A lot of it comes out of her own story. She was in foster care for a while, and so she knows all angles. And so she's passionate. She supports our foster parents. She loves our foster kids. And Katie's relatively new. She was a missionary in Nicaragua, and her and Heather finished each other's sentences, which is a little scary, but they are also super passionate about foster care. So we get excited about that.
Wow. And, somebody could be thinking, I wonder if I could be a foster family or foster parent.
Mm-hmm.
I would venture to guess a lot of people have at least had it crossed their mind.
Yeah.
What's the recipe for somebody who would be a good foster care parent?
Man, that's a great question, Brian. And there is study after studies, and this is probably anecdotal from me, but I think the ideal foster parent is, one, they love Jesus. Two, they love kids. Three, they don't take themselves too seriously. They haven't learned they don't know everything, and they're willing to learn. And four, they have a great self-awareness and an ability to say, I'm sorry when I blow it.
Those last two are unexpected for a lot of folks, I would imagine, because you would think what you want. You want the parents who have it figured out.
Yeah.
Why don't you want that?
Because realistically, I don't know if there are. Because here's the challenge with a lot of Christians that grow up with really, really high achieving kids. They really, really struggle with kids. They come in with these expectations so high and realize our kids are coming not from that level. They're not the kids that have had the opportunity to be in sports or drama or music and stuff. And so we want people that are willing to look at kids and say, man, every kid I will ever lock eyes with was worth enough for Jesus to die for. And so I'm going to do whatever it takes for this kid to understand that they're worth that.
And so maybe even a parent who one of their kids really struggled could be a good candidate.
Could be a fantastic candidate because they understand the issues. They understand because the reality is our kids, as you said earlier, it is not easy. I mean, when you're dealing with kids and adults that have been victims of trauma, there's behaviors that are challenges. And if we don't know, I mentioned to you earlier in the break that, we talk about all behavior is understandable with enough information. But a lot of times we don't know that information. And you may have heard this before, kids have certain triggers of things that have happened, even a smell of perfume or cologne. And all of a sudden they'll start acting really, really unregulated. And you're like, what's going on? And so to be able to step back, say this behavior is not about me. It's about what this child's dealing with or what this adult is. Because the challenge with untreated kids is they become untreated adults. And so we know, there is the fight, flee, or freeze. Think about that as an adult in a relationship. If you haven't dealt with those, anytime there's stress, I'm going to fight, I'm going to go, or I'm just going to freeze. That's not helpful. Job, romantic relationships. So we want to, particularly with our Encompass Christian Counseling, one of the things that we want to do is remove barriers in to people's discipleship. You know what I mean? So, because I know even like in Cleveland, I'm aware of there was a church plant that was really, really thriving till one of their members who had untreated sexual trauma in their youth just pretty much destroyed the church plant because of some behaviors that were understandable once you were able to unpack that. But you can imagine as members of a new church plant, they're like, what in the world's going on?
Yeah.
And so that's what we want to remove is those barriers to growth of people with discipleship with our Encompass Council.
What's that phrase you shared again about every behavior
is understandable with enough information. So
goodness gracious, that's a powerful phrase. It's true though, right? I mean,
it's not mine. I heard it, but it is true.
In terms of what it means to love your neighbor.
Oh yeah,
that is a pretty good recipe to consider in the basic principle of the greatest commandment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier to love your neighbor when you understand some what's going on. I learned that as a teacher the hard way. I told you off the air about this. I would get so angry at students that were acting out or pushing back against me. But every time I took the moment to find out why they did that and find out their home story, it became obvious it wasn't about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had nothing to do with me. They weren't laying up at night thinking about how to drive me crazy.
Yeah.
They were trying to, I don't know, not get hit by their parent
Yeah.
or try to get the next meal.
Yeah.
So important.
So the average,
go ahead. Yeah.
well, I was just going to say the average child we work with in residential and foster care is about a year and a half behind in school. But the reality is, if I'm worried about if there's going to be food in the house, or if I'm worried about going to be hit because I didn't do something right that I don't even know I was supposed to do I really care who the 16th president of the United States is? I mean,
No, it doesn't.
yeah, I mean that's the so that's the coolest thing when we see our kids excel. I mean, we know what they have overcome, and so when they have the ability. I mean, and that's for us as adults, man. That's for us as adults to walk alongside these kids and say, "You can do it. You can do it. You're worth it, man."
Amen. Yeah, and I think one of the challenges we face, especially if let's just say you had high-achieving kids or your biological children, I don't think we realize how often we place our own value and identity and worth in their achievement. In that when you have a kid that struggles, suddenly you don't realize how much you think it's a reflection of you.
Yeah.
And you're not seeing them for who they are.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine that's kind of what you meant, right? When you need people who understand there isn't a script here on how to do this.
Correct.
And there was a final aspect that I want to jump back to of all the categories of what you need to be a good foster parent. Do you remember there was one more that struck me, and I wish I would have written it down. I was just so captivated with what you're saying.
Don't take yourselves too seriously.
Yeah, don't take yourself too seriously. What do you mean by that?
That you need to be able to laugh. You need to be able to have joy, because there are so many of our kids and our adults that we work with that don't have any joy because they're always anxious. They're always anxious. And to be able to just be able to laugh at yourself. I'm telling you, one of the best parenting techniques ever is to be able to laugh at yourself. Like when you make a mistake, not being able to react about worrying about what people are thinking about, just laugh at yourself. It is contagious, and you bring joy, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's taken me a while to work on that. I wouldn't even say I'm there, but I'm working on it.
I'm right with you, Brian.
Again, we've been having a great conversation with Kevin Hewitt. He's president and CEO of Christian Children's Home of Ohio. How can folks get connected? Maybe someone's got their interest piqued in being a foster parent. Maybe they want to support you. How do they do it?
We have a lot of different ways. So actually the best way is probably the internet, but encouragefostercare.org. You'll have all the information there. ccho.org if you're interested. We're always looking for good treatment specialists and staff members. One of the things that limits us in growth is just needing more staff, and it's the same way with encompasschristiancounseling.org or encompasscounseling.org, one of those two. I apologize, I should know that.
That's okay.
But again, we need therapists that love Jesus. Our Encompass Christian Counseling actually came out of our relationships with our churches, that we saw churches that were going out and making a difference in the community, but they would realize once they get out in the community, it's like, man, these lives are messy, and how can we bring in help? So we have partnered. Almost all of our counseling offices came from a relationship with churches. And one of the things that breaks my heart is when we go to churches and we can't find therapists to be able to support that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, consider it. Again, if you can't find it, you can either reach out to us. We'd be glad to connect to you, or just Google it. Again, we're talking about our friend Kevin Hewitt, president and CEO of Christian Children's Home of Ohio. Thanks again for your time today.
Thank you guys very much.